and designed to keep you enslaved? What if everything you've been taught to believe, everything you see and experience, is part of a vast deception? This is not the plot of a science fiction film, nor is it a conspiracy theory born from paranoia. It is an ancient idea, one that has been whispered through the corridors of history, hidden in esoteric texts, and dismissed by those who would prefer the illusion to the unsettling truth. To the Gnostics, an ancient religious and philosophical movement, the material world is not just flawed or imperfect, it is a deliberate trap. It is a construct designed to deceive, a veil pulled over our eyes, to blind us to a greater reality. And at the center of this deception is a being they called Yaldabaoth. He is not the true God, not the source of all existence, but a counterfeit creator, a being who fashioned the physical world out of ignorance and arrogance. He is the demiurge, the false god who reigns over a kingdom of illusion. Yaldabaoth is not alone in maintaining this deception. His servants, the archons, are spiritual parasites who exert their control over humanity, shaping the very fabric of our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. They manipulate the structures of society, feed off our fears and desires, and reinforce the illusion so that we never even question its existence. They are the wardens of this cosmic prison, ensuring that those trapped within never realize they are captives. But if this world is a prison, then what is the way out? If our existence is ensnared in a web of lies, how can we uncover the truth? This video explores the nature of Yaldabaoth's prison, the tactics of the archons, and, most importantly, how we can escape. The path to liberation has always been there, hidden beneath layers of deception, waiting for those with the courage to seek it. The question is, will you? Before we can understand how to escape, we must first understand what binds us. To the Gnostics, the material world was not created by a benevolent, all-knowing God. It was not a gift, not a paradise, but a prison crafted by a being who was deeply flawed, both ignorant and arrogant in equal measure. This being is Yaldabaoth, the demiurge. His origins lie in the realm of the divine, but he himself is not divine. According to Gnostic mythology, the true God, the infinite and unknowable source of all existence, emanated countless spiritual beings known as aeons. Among them was Sophia, the personification of wisdom. But Sophia, in a moment of independent creation, gave birth to a being without the consent of the divine source. This being, Yaldabaoth, was malformed, incomplete, and cut off from the true light of divinity. Ashamed of her creation, Sophia cast him away, hiding him in a lower realm. But Yaldabaoth was not content with his exile. Believing himself to be the only god, he set about creating a world of his own, partitioning the material cosmos from the chaotic substance of his realm. Yet because he was ignorant of the true divine order, his creation was deeply flawed. It was a world built not on harmony, but on imbalance. Not on truth, but on deception. He declared himself the supreme being, proclaiming, "I am a jealous God, and there is none beside me." He did not realize that his very existence was a mistake, a shadow of something greater. In his arrogance, Yaldabaoth sought to populate his creation with beings who would serve him. He created the first humans, but they were lifeless, mere shells. It was only when the true God, the infinite source, imparted a spark of divine light into them that they became truly alive. And this is where the great cosmic struggle began. Yaldabaoth and his archons realized that within humanity was something they themselves lacked. Something powerful, something that could lead to their undoing. Within human beings was a fragment of the divine, a piece of the true God, the very thing that could awaken them from the illusion of the material world. Fearing this potential, the archons devised ways to keep humanity asleep. They bound humans to the physical world through suffering, desire, and ignorance. They wove an intricate web of control, ensuring that those born into the prison would never even suspect its existence. They created systems of belief, institutions of power, and cycles of fear and pleasure, all designed to keep the human spirit shackled. And so, the world became a prison, not in the literal sense of institutions of power and cycles of fear and pleasure existence. They created systems of belief, institutions of power, and cycles of fear and pleasure, all designed to keep the human spirit shackled. And so, The world became a prison, not in the literal sense of bars and chains, but a prison of the mind, a prison of perception. Those trapped within it do not see the bars, do not feel the walls closing in, because they have been conditioned to believe that this is all there is. The archons do not need to force anyone to stay. They simply ensure that no one thinks to leave. This is the nature of Yaldabaoth's cosmic prison. It is a place where deception is reality, where suffering is normalized, and where the greatest lie ever told is that there is no prison at all. The prison of the demiurge is not built of stone or iron, nor is it enforced by guards with chains and weapons. It is a prison of perception, one so insidious that most never realize they are trapped. The archons, Yaldabaoth's enforcers, exert control not through brute force, but through the manipulation of reality itself. They have shaped the very structures of the world we live in, our beliefs, our institutions, our emotions, so that we remain blind to our captivity. To escape, we must first understand the mechanisms of control they use against us. The first and most fundamental illusion is that of the physical world itself. To the unawakened mind, reality is defined by what can be seen, touched, and measured. We are taught from birth that the material world is all there is, that nothing exists beyond the confines of what our senses perceive. This belief is not just ignorance, it is a carefully maintained deception, one that prevents us from seeking deeper truths. The Greek philosopher Plato, centuries before the rise of Gnosticism, illustrated this concept in his allegory of the cave. He described prisoners who had been chained inside a cave since birth, forced to stare at a wall upon which shadows were projected. These shadows, cast by unseen puppeteers, became the only reality the prisoners knew. They had no concept of the outside world, no knowledge of the fire that created the shadows, and certainly no idea that they were prisoners at all. If one of them were to break free and step outside, the light of the sun would blind them at first, and they would struggle to comprehend the vastness of true reality. But if they returned to the cave to free the others, they would be met with disbelief and hostility. The prisoners, conditioned to accept the shadows as the only reality, would reject the truth. This is precisely how the archons operate. They keep us fixated on shadows, on surface-level distractions, on the ever-changing spectacle of the material world. We are told that wealth, status, and pleasure are the highest pursuits. We are bombarded with endless entertainment, with political drama, with narratives designed to keep us emotionally invested in the illusion. Meanwhile, the deeper truths, those that would lead us to real freedom, are ridiculed, suppressed, or ignored. Just as the prisoners in the cave could not comprehend a world beyond shadows, most people today cannot fathom a reality beyond the physical. But the illusion does not stop with the physical world. The archons maintain their control through institutions that shape human thought and behavior. Religion, government, and media, these are not inherently evil, but under the influence of the archons, they become tools of control rather than avenues for truth. Religious institutions, for example, often claim to offer salvation, but instead reinforce the very structures that keep people enslaved. Many teach that the material world is good, that suffering is a divine test, and that obedience is the highest virtue. They speak of a God who demands submission rather than awakening, who punishes those who question and rewards those who conform. Not the message of true divinity, but of the demiurge, who thrives on worship and blind faith. Governments and political systems function in much the same way. They create conflict, division, and fear, ensuring that people remain distracted and dependent. Wars are waged, crises manufactured, and endless debates staged to keep humanity perpetually engaged in struggles that ultimately serve no higher purpose. Those who seek power within these systems are often themselves mere puppets, unaware that they too are caught in the archon's web. Then there is the media, the most sophisticated tool of control in the modern age. Information is not presented to enlighten, but to shape perception. Stories are chosen not to inform, but to evoke specific emotions: fear, outrage, desire. The constant stream of news, advertisements, and entertainment keeps the mind engaged in the external world, reinforcing the illusion. The more absorbed one becomes in this cycle, the less time they have for introspection, for seeking true knowledge, for questioning the nature of their own existence. But the most profound control the archons exert is not through external institutions, but within the human mind itself. They do not merely manipulate the world around us, they manipulate us from within. Fear, desire, and ignorance, these are their most effective weapons. They thrive on fear because fear keeps people docile, afraid to question or rebel. They feed on desire because it keeps people chasing illusions, mistaking pleasure for fulfillment, and they foster ignorance because an unawakened mind is the easiest to control. The human ego is perhaps their greatest creation, a false identity that keeps individuals bound to the material world. The ego thrives on comparison, on conflict, on the illusion of separateness. It convinces people that they are alone, that they must fight for their place, that their worth is measured by external achievements. The ego blinds people to their true nature, which is not separate from divinity, but an extension of it. This is how the archons maintain control. They do not need chains or prisons because they have created a world where the prisoners police themselves. They have built a reality so immersive, so convincing, that few ever think to question it. They have constructed a labyrinth where every path seems to lead back to the same illusions. But the labyrinth is not infinite, and the way out has always been there, hidden in plain sight. To escape, one must first recognize the prison for what it is. One must see the illusion, not as reality, but as a construct designed to deceive. Only then can the search for true freedom begin. If the world is a prison and the archons are its wardens, then what is the path to freedom? How does one escape from a prison that exists not in chains and walls, but in perception and belief? The answer lies in gnosis, not in faith, not in blind obedience to doctrine, but in direct experiential knowledge of the truth. Gnosis is not intellectual knowledge. It is not about memorizing scriptures, following dogmas, or subscribing to a belief system. It is the awakening to reality as it is, not as the archons present it, but as it truly exists beyond the illusion. It is the realization that you are not your body, not your thoughts, not the identity the world has given you. You are something far greater, something that existed before the material world and will exist beyond it. The spark of divinity within you is real, but as long as you remain lost in the illusion, you will never access it. To achieve gnosis, one must first break through the layers of deception that keep the mind ensnared. The most fundamental of these deceptions is the belief that the material world is the ultimate reality. Every institution, every system, every societal norm reinforces the idea that what we see, touch, and experience is all there is. The first step to liberation is to question this assumption. Ask yourself, who am I beyond the name I was given? Beyond the roles I play in society? Beyond my desires, my fears, my ambitions? These are not questions with simple answers, and that is precisely the point. The process of seeking truth begins with uncertainty, with the willingness to abandon preconceived notions and venture into the unknown. One of the greatest obstacles to this process is the ego. The ego is the mask that the archons have placed over your true self, a false identity that keeps you tethered to the material illusion. The ego thrives on attachment to possessions, to status, to opinions, to the need to be right. It feeds on conflict, keeping you locked in endless struggles that prevent you from looking inward. To overcome the ego is not to destroy it, but to see it for what it is. A construct, a tool that serves a function but is not the essence of who you are. Detaching from the ego and the illusions of the material world does not mean withdrawing from life, nor does it mean adopting a nihilistic outlook. It means shifting perspective, seeing the world not as something to be conquered, but as something to be transcended. It means recognizing that everything the archons use to manipulate humanity, fear, desire, division, is powerless against one who sees beyond the illusion. There are many spiritual practices that can facilitate this awakening. Meditation, for instance, is one of the most powerful tools for breaking free. In silence, when all external distractions are removed, the mind can begin to see through its own conditioning. The practice of observing one's thoughts without attachment reveals how much of our inner world is dictated by forces outside of our control. When one learns to still the mind, to detach from thoughts and emotions, the grip of the archons begins to weaken. Another method is lucid dreaming, which in many ways is a direct metaphor for waking up from the illusion of the material world. In a lucid dream, one realizes that they are dreaming, that the world around them is not real, and that they have the power to shape their reality. The same principle applies to waking life. When one achieves gnosis, the world no longer appears as a rigid external force, but as a malleable illusion that can be navigated with awareness and intention. Inner work, shadow work in particular, is also essential. The archons do not only exist outside of us, they exist within, in the form of unhealed wounds, unconscious fears, and suppressed emotions. To confront these aspects of the self is to reclaim the energy that has been used against us. It is to take back power from the forces that thrive on our pain and ignorance. Ultimately, the path to liberation is not about acquiring something new. It is not about gaining knowledge in the conventional sense. It is about remembering. The truth has always been within you. The archon's greatest deception is convincing you that you are powerless, that you are just a fleeting physical being in a meaningless world. Once you realize that this is a lie, that you are something far greater than you have been led to believe, the illusion begins to crumble. The question is no longer whether escape is possible, it is whether you will take the steps to awaken. The prison is real, but so is the key. The archons have woven a web of deception so intricate that most people live their entire lives without ever questioning it. They are born into the illusion, molded by it, conditioned to defend it, and ultimately perish within it, never realizing that they were captives all along. The material world is not what it appears to be. It is not a playground for human progress, nor a divine paradise. It is a labyrinth, a construct designed to trap the divine spark within a cycle of ignorance, suffering, and attachment. But no prison is perfect. The cracks in the illusion are always there, waiting to be noticed. A moment of déjà vu, a sudden realization that time itself feels unnatural, an experience that defies the laws of material reality. These are glimpses of something beyond the veil. The Gnostics understood that true liberation does not come through external means. No government, no revolution, no external savior can free you from a prison that exists within your own perception. The only path to freedom is inward. The only escape is through gnosis. To awaken is to see the illusion for what it is, to detach from false narratives, to recognize the forces that seek to control, to no longer be a puppet dancing on the strings of fear and desire. The archons thrive on your ignorance, but they have no real power over one who has seen through the game. Once you remember who you truly are, once you recognize the divine essence within you, their influence begins to fade. But awakening is not easy. It requires courage to step beyond the boundaries of what you have been taught. It demands the willingness to unlearn, to let go of false comforts, to face the unsettling truth that the world is not what it seems. Many will resist this path. Many will cling to the illusion because it is familiar, because it is easier to remain asleep than to embrace the radical uncertainty of true awakening. But the choice is always there. So I ask you now, will you take the first step? Will you begin to question, to seek, to turn your gaze inward and break free from the chains of perception? The prison exists only as long as you believe in it. The moment you begin to awaken, the walls start to crumble. The archons do not fear your resistance. They do not fear rebellion, nor do they fear anger. What they fear is your awakening. What they fear is the moment you realize that their power over you was never real to begin with. The prison is real, but so is the key. Will you escape?
From the moment you took your first breath, the system had already decided your fate. Your memories wiped, your true nature buried, and your choice is nothing more than illusions fed to you by a construct so ancient, so well crafted, that even the most brilliant minds fail to question it. You are not in control. You never were. This world is not what it seems. The cycle of birth, life, suffering, and death is not some divine process of growth, it is a machine. A prison. And your soul is its fuel. The concept of the soul trap is not some fringe conspiracy or New Age nonsense. It is the foundation of every major religious and philosophical system throughout history, twisted and repackaged to keep you docile, obedient, and most importantly, contained. The ancient Gnostics knew the truth. They called this world the creation of a false god, a demiurge who forged reality not as a paradise, but as a farm, an energy-harvesting construct designed to enslave consciousness itself. The Hermeticists warned of cosmic archons, parasitic entities that manipulate human perception, keeping souls tethered to the material plane. The Vedic text spoke of Maya, the great illusion, where the souls of men are endlessly recycled through reincarnation, never allowed to escape the wheel of samsara. Still think you're here to learn lessons or grow spiritually? You've been lied to. You are not on a journey toward enlightenment, you are prey. And this world is your cage. Here's how it works. At the moment of death, everything you think you know shatters. The comforting belief that you'll go to heaven or merge with the universe is a fabricated story designed to keep you moving toward the light. That light? It's a trap. It's a forced reincarnation system, a cosmic recycling machine engineered to strip you of your memories, your power, and your true nature before shoving you back into another body, erasing any trace of the life you just lived. Countless near-death experiences describe the same phenomenon: a tunnel, a blinding light, the presence of guides, beings that claim to be loved ones, angels, or even deities. They lure the soul into submission, playing on its emotional attachments, its fears, its longing for home. But these entities are not benevolent. They are gatekeepers. Their only job is to ensure that you never break free. Ancient Tibetan Buddhist texts describe the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which explicitly warns against following the light after death. Instead, it urges the soul to seek the path beyond illusion, to evade the reincarnation trap. The Gnostic texts, particularly the Secret Gospel of John, expose the rulers of this realm as deceptive beings who feed on human suffering and spiritual ignorance. Even Plato, in his dialogue The Republic, speaks of souls being forced to drink from the river Lethe, obliterating their past memories before being thrust into new bodies. And the system doesn't stop there. The moon, long worshipped as a celestial guide, has been implicated as a key component of the trap. Esoteric traditions, from ancient Hindu cosmology to 20th century occultist thinkers like Robert Monroe and David Icke, describe the moon as an artificial satellite, an astral control station where souls are processed, memory wiped, and reassigned to new lives. The Saturn-Moon matrix theory suggests that the moon acts as a frequency emitter, keeping humanity in a constant state of vibrational entrapment, preventing escape from the physical realm. Why do you think every major civilization obsessed over the moon? Why do secret societies encode lunar symbolism in their rituals? Because they know. And they don't want you to. This is not just about religious belief or ancient myths. Modern science is slowly catching up. Quantum physics has already proven that reality is non-local, that consciousness is not confined to the brain, and that the material world is more illusion than substance. Studies on DMT and near-death experiences suggest that reality itself may be a programmed construct, a high-dimensional simulation controlled by forces we cannot perceive with our limited senses.
Like, share, subscribe.